SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are our headlines.
The United States reopens its land and air borders Monday to foreign visitors fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
Japan eases border rules to allow business travelers and students in.
Daniel Ortega won a fourth consecutive presidential term Monday in elections denounced by the U.S. as a sham.
And astronaut Wang Yaping became the first Chinese woman to walk in space.
First in our news, the United States reopens its land and air borders Monday to foreign visitors fully vaccinated against COVID-19, ending 20 months of restrictions on travel from around the globe that separated families, hobbled tourism, and strained diplomatic ties. Take a look. The ban imposed by former President Donald Trump in early 2020 and upheld by his successor, Joe Biden, has been widely criticized and become emblematic of the upheavals caused by the pandemic. Now, the restrictions were particularly unpopular in Europe and U.S. neighbors Canada and Mexico. In an effort to slow the spread of the coronavirus, U.S. borders were closed after March 2020 to travelers from large parts of the world, including the European Union, Britain, and China, India, and Brazil. Overland visitors from Mexico and Canada were also banned. The months of restrictions affecting hundreds of millions of people helped fuel both personal and economic suffering brought on by the pandemic. Although travel from the United States to Europe has been possible since the summer, foreign U.S. residents holding certain visas have had no guarantee of re-entry. To cope with surging demands, airlines have increased the number of transatlantic flights and plan to use larger planes as they work their way out of the pandemic crisis.
The nation's total number of recovered coronavirus cases has reached 2,728,696 after 3,510 new recoveries were reported. In its latest case bulletin, the Department of Health, or DOH, noted that recoveries account for 97.3% of the total case count, which has reached 2,805,294 since the start of the pandemic last year. Meanwhile, some 2,087 new infections brought the total number of active cases nationwide to 32,077, lower than Sunday's 33,526 active cases. About 64.7% of these active cases are mild, 5.8% are asymptomatic, 4% are critical, 9.5% are severe, and 16.09% are moderate. Some 91 new deaths were reported, which brought the country's COVID-19 fatalities to 44,521.
Staying in the country, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. said the vaccination program against COVID-19 should be a must for everybody, despite certain sectors opposing such a move as it could supposedly be an anti-poor policy. Let's listen in.
Sa akin po palagay, personal palagay at saka palagay po namin ng DILG, napapanahon na po na talagang kailangan i-mandate po natin ang vaccination. Unang-una, hindi po tayo makakalagpas dito sa pandemyang ito hanggang hindi po lahat ay napapakunahan. Kung meron po tayo meron tayong hesitancy na more or less 34%, napakalaking sizable amount po yon, 34 million ang nag-roam around na parang time bomb na nakikita natin sila maghahasik ng lagim sa ating mga tatawag na mamamayan. Nakikita namin yung mandated vaccination is necessary. Parang katulad din po ito, sinasabi ko nga po na minandate natin na no smoking sa public areas. At nakikita po natin na mas mahirap pa po yung ating dinadanas po ngayon na napakalaki ng ng epekto po nito sa ating ekonomiya, sa ating kalusugan. So sa amin po nakikita po natin parang yung sa isang lugar na magkakaroon po ng isang typhoon, nagkakaroon po tayo ng tinatawag na forced evacuation kasi alam po natin mamamatay po sila pagka hindi po sila nag-evacuate. Ganun din po ang ating mandato kasi we have a constitutional mandate. The state has a constitutional mandate to protect the people and look for their welfare. At kung isang nakita natin yung isang baksinado, sure na sure po tayo na pagkatinaman po ito ng COVID, hospital po or sementeryo ang aabutin niya po ng po.
Japan eases border rules to allow business, travelers, and students in. We have Dennis Liu for the report. Dennis.
Japan said it will allow short-term business travelers, foreign students, and other visa holders to enter the country. But tourists are still barred under pandemic border restrictions. From Monday, business visitors fully inoculated with an authorized vaccine will need to quarantine for only 3 days, down from a minimum of 10 days. The Foreign Ministry said, according to Japanese media, around 370,000 visa holders are waiting to enter the country and will be gradually let in. Business travelers remain the responsibility of their firms while in Japan and need to provide activity plans for each trip, the Foreign Ministry said. Visitors from 3 countries deemed high risk, Trinidad and Tobago, Peru, and Venezuela, are still barred. The ministry did not say when tourists may be allowed in. Japan welcomed a record 31.9 million foreign visitors in 2019 and had been on track to achieve its goal of 40 million in 2020 before the pandemic hit. Daily cases in this country of 126 million have plunged from record highs of more than 25,000 in August to the current average of just over 200. Despite a slow start to its vaccination campaign, 73% of the population is now fully inoculated. Japan has seen comparatively few virus deaths, around 18,000, despite never having imposed stay-at-home orders. This is the latest for now. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, most of Russia on Monday ended a week-long paid holiday aimed at curbing the spread of the coronavirus, despite the country seeing thousands of new cases and more than 1,000 deaths per day. President Vladimir Putin ordered the paid holiday period from October 30 to November 7 in a bid to stem soaring infections and deaths exacerbated by a slow vaccination drive. Individual regions had the authority to extend the period, but as of Monday, only 5 had done so, including the western region of Bryansk and the northwestern region of Novgorod. A number of regions did, however, introduce or extend a requirement for proof of vaccination to visit restaurants, cafes, and shopping centers.
Dense fog was seen in Moscow with major airports forcing the delay or cancellation of flights. We have Emi Coloma for the report.
Moscow, Russia. Tuesday morning here in Moscow is unusual than days gone by because Tuesday the whole city was wrapped in thick fog that you used to see in the distance. Now can hardly see the cars on the road, and that is the equivalent of the distance will reach 200 meters. So the city kept the street lights on. It is not uncommon for most of the eyewitnesses to take photos and videos out of mixed emotion with excitement and wonder. According to other news, the flight schedules have been delayed today and others have canceled the schedule. Let's take a look at the various photos and videos of the witnesses.
BBC Russia Bureau, this is Emi Coloma, and we live in interesting times.
Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner says that 2 teenagers aged 14 and 16 were among the 8 victims of a tragic crush at a huge Travis Scott rap concert. Speaking at a press conference, he says 13 people are still hospitalized, including 5 under the age of 18. Take a look.
8 people are reported dead from the event last night. In terms of their ages, one is 14, one is 16, 2 are 21 years of age, 2 are 23, 1 is 27, and 1 remains unknown at this time.
We do have a report of a security officer, according to the medical staff that was out and treated him last night, that he was reaching over to restrain or grab a citizen, and he felt a prick in his neck. When he was examined, he went unconscious. They administered Narcan. He was revived.
Rappers Travis Scott and Drake have been sued for having incited mayhem after 8 people were killed and dozens injured in a crush during a Texas concert. The law firm confirmed that on Sunday. Texas firm Thomas J. Henry Law on Sunday tweeted a story published by the Daily Mail on the suit, confirming it had filed one of the first lawsuits in Travis Scott Astroworld Festival tragedy. The plaintiff is a 23-year-old concert goer, Christian Paredes, who was one of those severely injured at the concert on the night of November 5th. Around 50,000 people were in the audience at Houston's NRG Park when the crowd started pushing forward or toward the stage as Scott was performing, triggering chaotic scenes. Now, the suit filed in Houston's Harris County Court claims Scott had incited mayhem and chaos at prior events and that defendants knew or should have known of Scott's prior conduct. The suit also accuses Canadian rap superstar Drake, who joined Scott's headline set, of contributing to causing the surge towards the stage.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Sunday slammed Nicaraguan presidential elections as a sham, as incumbent Daniel Ortega was assured to win after sidelining his challengers. What Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega and his wife, Vice President Rosario Murillo, orchestrated today was a pantomime election that was neither free nor fair and most certainly not democratic, Biden said in a White House statement on Nicaragua's, quote, sham elections. Ortega's regime rigged the outcome well before Election Day by imprisoning 39 opposition figures, including 7 would-be presidential challengers in recent months and blocking political parties, according to President Biden. He also hit out at the Nicaraguan leader for having quashed and bullied the independent media, the private sector, and civil society. Nicaraguans went to the polls on Sunday under what rights groups called a climate of fear in the impoverished Central American country. President Biden called on Ortega to take immediate steps to restore democracy and for the release of those unjustly imprisoned.
Daniel Ortega won a 4th consecutive presidential term, as was reported earlier, in elections again denounced by the United States as a sham, with the long-term Nicaraguan leader deriding his opponents, most of them jailed or in exile as terrorists. Now, with ballots in 49% of polling stations counted, Ortega had 75% of votes, according to official partial results from the country's Supreme Electoral Council. With 7 would-be presidential challengers detained since June, the 75-year-old was assured a 4th consecutive 5-year term, his 5th overall. Spain's Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez called the landslide re-election of Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega to a 4th straight term a farce. He said it was a farce against the people of Nicaragua, a farce against the international community, and above all, a farce against democracy. The European Union said Nicaragua is now fully an autocratic regime. On Sunday, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, his own 2018 re-election not recognized by most of the international community, congratulated Ortega on his imminent victory.
In other news, astronaut Wang Yaping became the first Chinese woman to walk in space, according to authorities on Monday, as her team completed a 6-hour stint outside the Tiangong Space Station as part of its ongoing construction. Take a look. Tiangong, meaning Heavenly Palace, is the latest achievement in China's drive to become a major space power after landing a rover on Mars and sending probes to the moon. Its core module entered orbit earlier this year, with the station expected to be operational by 2022. Wang and her colleague Zhai Zhigang stepped out of the module on Sunday night, waving to the camera while tethered to the outside of the station, and installed a suspension device and transfer connectors. Tiangong is expected to operate for at least 10 years, and the 3 astronauts are the second group to stay there. Wang is the first woman to visit. Mission Commander Zhai is a former fighter pilot who performed China's first spacewalk in 2008. And the news continues here in Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alex Calleja, isang podcaster, YouTuber, writer, director, at isang stand-up comedian for more than 12 years. Kaya naman, heto na ang funniest Nakawall Videos! Ang natatanging show na bubusugin ang buong sambayanan sa katatawanan! Ito ang bagong tambayan ng buong pamilya at barkada. Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes nyo kami makakasama tuwing 4:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25. Dito, mapapanood natin ang best comedy videos na hinanap pa namin sa kasuluk-sulukan ng internet. So ano pang hinihintay nyo? Join na sa pinakabago at pinakamasayang afternoon habit ng tawanan at kulitan, ang funniest Nakawall Videos!
and sing this song to all of our age. For these are the questions we've got to face. For in this cycle that we call life, we are the ones who are next in line.
Hello everyone, I'm Joaquin Reyes. Catch me on Letters and Music, on air and online, this coming Sunday, November 14th, 1 to 2 p.m. Only here in Nat 25. See ya!
Welcome back to the news. 9 people are dead and 2 others missing after floods in Sri Lanka and parts of southern India caused by more than a week of rain pounding happened. Nearly half of Sri Lanka's 25 districts have been hit by the deluge, with the worst affected areas in and around the island's tea-growing central highlands. 5 deaths and 2 disappearances were reported across Sri Lanka since the rains began at the end of October, according to the island's disaster management agency. More floods are likely in the coming days, with downpours set to move to the country's northern coast around the city of Jaffna, the country's weather bureau warned. 4 people have also died in rain-related incidents across India's Tamil Nadu state. Most main roads in state capital Chennai were underwater and trees were uprooted, disrupting traffic.
And as camels walk on the fringes of Thar Desert, an oasis of blue solar panels stretches further than the eye can see at Badla Park, a cornerstone of India's bid to become a clean energy powerhouse. Take a look.
मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं हम भी 1% हमारी हिस्सेदारी रख रहे हैं। जैसे हमारे कोटपुतली कस्बे की नीड है आज के दिन 220 मेगावाट, हम 5 मेगावाट जनरेट करके दे रहे हैं उन लोगों को, तो 2% मेरी भी हिस्सेदारी है उसमें। ये बस अच्छा लगा हमें।
The 65 most vulnerable nations will see GDP drop 20% on average by 2050 and 64% by 2100 if the world heats up 2.9 degrees Celsius, according to a report released Monday at the COP26 climate talks in Glasgow. Even if global temperature rises are capped at 1.5 degrees Celsius, in keeping with the most ambitious Paris Agreement goal, the same countries would take a GDP hit of 13% by 2050 and 33% by the end of the century, the study commissioned by Christian Aid said. To date, Earth's average surface temperature has risen 1.1 degrees Celsius compared to late 19th century levels. The findings from Christian Aid showed that more than a third of the world's nations urgently need help to build up resilience if their economies are to withstand the onslaught of heat waves, drought, floods, and storms made more intense and deadly by global warming. 8 of the top 10 most affected countries are in Africa, with 2 in South America.
In other news, a Singapore court put the execution of a Malaysian man in a drug trafficking case on hold Monday after a last-ditch legal challenge, according to his lawyer, following criticism from campaigners who say he is mentally disabled. Nagentran K. Dharmalingam was arrested in 2009 for carrying 43 grams, around 3 tablespoons of heroin, into the city-state, which has some of the world's toughest anti-drugs laws. He was sentenced to death the following year and was due to be hanged on Wednesday after losing several appeals, despite supporters' claims his intellectual disability means he can't make rational decisions. But on Monday, the Singapore High Court agreed to postpone the execution pending a new appeal from his lawyers, who are arguing that the hanging would be unconstitutional. Malaysian Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob wrote to his Singapore counterpart, urging the execution to be postponed on humanitarian grounds, according to reports. If it goes ahead, it will be the first hanging since 2019 in Singapore, which defends its use of capital punishment as an effective deterrent against crime, despite mounting calls for its abolition. Supporters say Nagentran has an IQ of 69, a level recognized as an intellectual disability, and was struggling with an alcohol problem at the time of the crime.
A French policeman was attacked by a man with a knife, claiming to act in the name of the Prophet on Monday, but was unharmed, according to the Interior Minister. The officer was behind the wheel of a car in front of a police station in the town at 6:30 a.m. or 5:30 GMT when the attacker opened the door and stabbed him with a knife. Take a look.
Lorsqu'une patrouille de police nationale prenait son service en début de matinée, il était à peu près 6h30 du matin, un homme les a agressés, un assaillant, et leur a adressé des coups de couteau, notamment un agent qui était assis à l'arrière du véhicule. Heureusement, le gilet pare-balles a protégé le policier qui a pris une attaque au couteau sur le thorax et une dans le dos, mais le policier n'est pas blessé physiquement. Et ensuite, un policier, face aux attaques répétées de l'agresseur, a répliqué à l'arme à feu, et il l'a bien fait, et donc a neutralisé l'assaillant.
French police have been targeted in a series of attacks from Islamic extremists in recent years, leading to calls for better protection and harsher jail sentences. In April, a police employee was stabbed to death in the secure entrance to a station in the quiet Paris commuter town of Rambouillet, while an officer was seriously wounded in a knife attack near the western city of Nantes in May. In October 2019, 3 officers and 1 police employee in Paris were stabbed to death in the headquarters of the Paris police by a radicalized employee. Each attack has sharpened attention on the danger of Islamic extremism in France, which has suffered a wave of violence over the last decade from radicals inspired by Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State group.
Meanwhile, 3 Ivy League universities, Columbia University and Cornell University in New York State, and Brown University in Rhode Island, announced on Twitter that they have evacuated parts of their campus on Sunday after receiving bomb threats. Take a look. According to WKSG News, Tompkins County Emergency Services received an anonymous call from a person who claimed to be inside a building on the campus with automatic weapons, according to a statement from the university. The caller also claimed that explosive devices had been placed in several buildings on the campus. On Friday afternoon, a single anonymous caller told police that bombs had been placed in 8 buildings on Yale's New Haven, Connecticut campus, according to AP reports. Yale student newspaper reported that some 40 bombs had been reported on their campus. Yale got the all clear from campus police at around 7 p.m. local time at the same evening.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Sana'y bigyan ng pag-asa para ibigin ka ng pag-asa para mahalin ka ng pag-asa para pagsilbihan ka ng pag-asa.
Hi guys, this is Selena Marie. Please catch me on Letters and Music on air and online this coming Saturday, November 13, 1 to 2 p.m. only here on Netman 5. See ya!
Ma'am, yung pumasok ng pandemya talaga sobrang dagok. Talaga grabe yung ginawa sa amin. Tapos sasabihan pa ng sakit ng asawa ko. Ultimo gamot, ma'am. Magkano lang ang gamot? 2, 3. Hindi ko pa mabili. Oh, siguro, pagsubok lang naman to. Hindi naman siguro ibibigay sa akin to kung hindi ko kaya.
Hindi nagsasalita. Naninikip yung dibdib niya. Tapos, pumunta ka na ngayon dito, kuya.
Ano naman? Puro kabiro.
Tent presence of uniformed personnel to enforce quarantine procedures.
Para kang superhero, Papa.
Isipin may makakain ka lang. Diba? Pero sabi nila na lalabas ka. Hindi ka ba nihawa sa anak mo paglabas mo? Hindi mo alam po nakakuha na ng sakit. Di ba ganun? Ako inisip po. Kasi naman, hindi ako lumabas. Gutom naman kami.
Para sa isang tatay, napakasarap maramdaman na buong-buo ang tiwala ng iyong pamilya. Na sama-sama niyong malalagpasan at mapagtatagumpayan ang anumang hamon ng buhay. Kahit na mabigat na pagsubok ang pinagdadaanan natin, bagong pag-asa at bagong inspirasyon ang ihahatid namin sa inyo.
pinapangarap niya na mapagamot siya, ma'am. Ito na yung katuparan na para mapagamot siya. Ito na yung katuparan na para mapagamot yung misis ko, Sir Eduardo B. Manalo. Maraming salamat po sa naitulong nyo na ibinigay po sa aking pamilya.
Kaya kung kayo ay may kakilala, kaibigan o kamag-anak na nais niyong lingapin ang aming programa, ipadala niyo sa amin ang kanyang kwento. Ako po si Apple David at ito ang Lingap Stories.
Welcome back to the news. With the further lowering of the alert level in the national capital region in the Philippines, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez said some 100,000 jobs are expected to return to the labor market. In a palace briefing, Lopez said around 1.8 million jobs were affected since the NCR was reverted to the most stringent community quarantine status in early July due to the threats of the Delta variant of COVID-19. Watch this.
Nung minomonitor natin yung impact nung dito sa employment, lalo na nung nagtaas, nag-ECQ, MECQ, alert level 4, at bumaba sa 3, ngayon 2. Ang total lahat na naapektuhan dyan ay mga 1.8 million, yung talaan po natin noon. At dahil sa mga movement pababa ng mga alert level cases, ang mga natira po sa estimate namin bago nag-alert level 2 ay mga 100,000. Around 100,000, more or less. So ito po yung inaasahan nating makabalik na yung alert level 2. At base naman sa studies ng NEDA ay may mga 3.6 billion pesos na revenues ang aasahan per week na makakabalik because of alert level 2. Ang bottom line po dito ay ito na nga po yung inaantay natin na mapagbabalik po sa economic activities.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this.
Start your day right! Tara na! Simulan na ang excitement and happiness kada umaga.
Welcome back. Hundreds of Filipino factory workers benefited from Iglesia Ni Cristo's Aid to Humanity, recently held in Poland. Here's Chiara Roquillo for the details.
The Church of Christ Iglesia Ni Cristo members all around Northern Europe were gathered in Szczecin, Poland, and recently conducted an Aid to Humanity project wherein around 600 Filipino factory workers were given packages containing various food necessities. Szczecin, Poland is the administrative and industrial center of the West Pomeranian province. Located near the Baltic Sea and the German border, it is Poland's 7th largest city with a population of 398,255 as of December 2020. With the COVID-19 restrictions being eased and lifted around Europe, members of the Church of Christ took this chance and did not hesitate to hold an Aid to Humanity, or Lingap sa Mamamayan, one of the biggest events ever held by the Church of Christ in this country. This event was held on October 31st, 2021, which has important meaning to the members of the Church of Christ as it is the birthday of their executive minister. This year, the members united in this event to celebrate and show their appreciation to Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Aside from listening to the teachings inside the Church of Christ, the guests in attendance coming from all over Poland were also able to enjoy musical performances and were given refreshments as well. This occasion has had a big impact on the Filipino community in Poland. Not only did it bring the Filipino people from various Polish cities together, but it was also a chance for them to meet each other's acquaintances that are of different nationalities. Reporting from EBC Poland, this is Chiara Ronquillo. We live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Kara. And well, of course, as we said last time, the Aid to Humanity continues during this pandemic. And, you know, it's just right that we do help as much as we can. Thank you to everyone who participated in those. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. The week is just beginning. The news continues tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power. Dito nyo lang unang maririnig. Breaking news.
Talagang napag-isipan ninyo, wag na pong tumakbo.
Si Mayor Sara ay tatakbo. I will